War Machine, the MMA fighter who became a monster, from a cage warrior to a real-life killer. Jonathan War Machine Koppenhaver was once hailed by MMA fans as a fiery warrior. He entered the cage with blazing eyes and savage fists, making opponents tremble even before the fight began. With his massive build and mad warrior persona, War Machine became an idol for countless fight enthusiasts. He even carried a chilling slogan, "Don't fear the blood, I'll drink it." But outside the arena lights, War Machine was a ticking time bomb. A troubled childhood, an explosive temper, and an obsession with control turned him into a violent abuser in his personal life. His most tragic victim was his famous girlfriend, adult film actress Christy Mack. Christy Mack's Night of Terror. In August 2014, War Machine stormed into Christy's home. In a jealous frenzy, he launched a brutal assault, turning her apartment into a bloody battlefield. Christy suffered 18 broken bones, including her cheekbone, ribs, and nose. Her liver was torn, with severe internal injuries. Her face was so disfigured that her friends could barely recognize her. Through tears, Christy testified, "I thought I was going to die. He beat me until I couldn't move anymore." The horrifying scene shocked the entire sports world. A fighter once admired for his courage had transformed into a monster, unleashing his full strength on the fragile body of a woman. The trial and sentence. In court, the evidence was undeniable. Christie's injuries, witness testimonies, and War Machine's violent past. The jury quickly delivered its verdict, 29 felony counts. The sentence, life in prison, with parole eligibility only after 36 years. From a fighter once cheered by thousands, War Machine now sits in a cold, silent prison cell. A dark reminder. The story of War Machine is a painful reminder of the dark side of warriors who failed to control themselves. Inside the cage, there were rules and referees. Outside, his lack of restraint stripped away his humanity. The glory of MMA has been buried under a life sentence, and the name War Machine now lingers only as the haunting memory of a nightmare. Suge Knight, the rap kingpin and the shadow of the streets. From the throne of hip-hop to a 28-year prison sentence. Marion Suge Knight was once hailed as the godfather of West Coast rap. He wasn't just the co-founder of Death Row Records. He was the man who helped launch legends like Tupac Shakur, Dr. Dre, and Snoop Dogg to superstardom. In the 1990s, if you wanted to make it big in rap, Suge Knight was the gatekeeper you had to face. His presence radiated raw power, black suits, dark shades, bodyguards at his side. Every step he took sent chills down spines. But behind the glamorous front, Suge built his empire on intimidation, violence, and the law of the streets. Insiders often whispered, if Suge wanted, your career could end with a single phone call. The 2015 tragedy, deadly hit and run. On January 29, 2015, in Compton, Los Angeles, Suge Knight drove his red pickup truck to the set of a commercial shoot for the NWA biopic. A heated argument broke out between him and a group of men. In the chaos, Suge accelerated straight into two men, Terry Carter and Clay Sloan. Carter was killed instantly, his body crushed beneath the wheels. Sloan suffered severe injuries but survived. The chilling part? The entire scene was caught on surveillance cameras. The footage showed the truck surging forward, running over the victims, then reversing to strike again. That horrifying image marked Suge's downfall, from music mogul to killer behind the wheel. the trial and sentence. At first, Suge Knight faced a murder charge and the possibility of life in prison. But with overwhelming evidence stacked against him, he struck a plea deal, pleading guilty to voluntary manslaughter. In 2018, the court delivered its judgment: 28 years in prison, 22 years for voluntary manslaughter, 6 years added for prior offenses as a repeat felon. On sentencing day, Suge Knight, the man who once made Hollywood tremble, stood silent, stripped of all his power and glory. A permanent stain on rap history. Suge Knight didn't just lose his freedom, he left behind a stain that will never be erased from the history of American rap. If Tupac and Dr. Dre represented artistry and music, Suge Knight became the embodiment of destruction and blind ambition. From the throne of hip-hop, the once feared kingpin is now just another inmate, trapped behind cold prison walls. No music, no empire, only the lingering echo of violence. Elizabeth Holmes, the female Steve Jobs, or the biggest medical fraud of the century? From startup icon to federal inmate, Elizabeth Holmes was once the dream of Silicon Valley. Young, brilliant, charismatic, with piercing blue eyes and a black turtleneck style that mirrored Steve Jobs. The media crowned her the goddess of tech, and Forbes named Holmes the youngest self-made female billionaire in America. She promised to revolutionize healthcare with Theranos, a startup that claimed it could test for hundreds of diseases with just a single drop of blood. The idea was so seductive that investors, politicians, and everyday Americans believed she was the woman who would change the world. The horrifying truth behind the perfect facade. On stage, Holmes spoke in her deep, confident voice. "This is how we save millions of lives." But behind the scenes, the Theranos lab was chaos. The machines didn't work as advertised. Test results were dangerously inaccurate, sometimes giving patients false negatives for cancer or HIV. Employees were threatened, silenced, and forced to sign strict non-disclosure agreements. One doctor recalled, "I had a patient who was told they didn't have cancer, only to later discover the tumor had already spread." This wasn't just fraud. It was a crime against human lives. The trial and sentence. In 2015, investigative journalists and whistleblowers exposed the truth. Theranos was nothing more than a house of cards built on lies. Holmes was charged with 11 counts, including securities fraud, healthcare fraud, and conspiracy to defraud patients. In 2022, the court delivered its verdict: 11 years and 3 months in federal prison. Hundreds of millions of dollars in restitution to defrauded investors. On the day she entered federal prison, Holmes, the same woman who once appeared on magazine covers in her iconic black turtleneck, was reduced to just another inmate wearing a brown uniform and handcuffs. A moral collapse of Silicon Valley Elizabeth Holmes wasn't just a startup fail. She became the ultimate symbol of ethical failure in Silicon Valley. Her story is a stark reminder. Confidence, piercing stares, and polished presentations don't always reflect the truth. Sometimes they're nothing more than a dangerous mask hiding deadly deception.